Korean is also a situation-oriented language. That means many of the elements within a sentence can be omitted, but can be perfectly understood in context. So to be able to speak Korean very well, you need to you need to be able to read the situation very well. In fact, we have a word for it, and there's no English translation. It's 눈치, 눈치. I think the closest approximation, if I wanted to do literally, 눈 means eye, and chi is like a gesture or catching, grasping, or something. It's really hard to describe, but I think the closest connotative interpretation of that word would be something like reading the context. And obviously, there is no single word equivalent in English. So let me give you examples. The Korean greeting, 안녕하세요, 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 literally means be peaceful. There's no you anywhere. But in English, if you just say be peaceful, I mean, that's odd. I mean, when you say how are you, which is the equivalent, you wouldn't just say how are. I mean, are kind of gives you away that you must be the subject, but you wouldn't just say how, right? That would sound ungrammatical. Same thing with thank you, 고맙습니다, 고맙습니다, 고맙습니다. It doesn't say who you're thanking, but depending on the context, chances are you're just speaking with one person. The speaking partner, the interlocutor, is the one that you're thanking. 어디 가세요? 어디 가세요? 어디 가세요? Where are you going? There's no you to be found anywhere in the literal translation. It's just where, go. So you can imagine, it could be the third person, like he, she, but you can drop these things. So it's one of those languages where situation is very, very important. Korean is also a macro to micro language. What it means is that when you talk about things like address and the date, we start with the biggest thing and then we gradually go down. In English is exactly the opposite. So for example, if you're referring to addressing your professor, you'd say Professor Min-soo Kim. Look at the name. Min-soo in English is the first name, and the family name comes last. But in Korean, it's Kim Min-soo 교수님. Kim, last name first, Min-soo, first name, next. So actually the first name, last name thing doesn't really quite work in Korean. You have to say the family name and a given name, really. You know why? Because we come from a culture where ancestor worship is important. The family worship is important. Which family you come from is very important. And you're supposed to be humble in this context of a family or country. So you're just a mere individual. So you put the big thing first, your family first. Kim, I belong to this family, Kim. And then individually, I'm Min-soo. Like that. So with my name, I belong to the tribe of Jung. And then individually, I'm Eunha. Same thing with addresses. In English, you would say, 1 South Street, Los Angeles, California. So 1 Pill Street, the street name first, right? The smallest unit. And then the district, Jung District, Seoul. If I give you an English equivalent, it would be like 1321 Bremerton, Washington, USA. So 1321, I don't know, Eisenhower Street. That's the smallest unit. And then Bremerton City. And then the next one, State, Washington. And then the US, right? You go from, because I think I don't know, maybe individuals are more important, or like pinpointing something is more important rather than gradually focusing in on something. You start with the focus and then you gradually zoom out. But in Korean, it's the other way. How dare I put my address first? the city that I belong to comes first. The country I belong to comes first. So Seoul comes first. Junggu, the district, comes next. And then Piltong, and then Won, which is the street name, next. So from big to small. And whenever I put addresses on the envelopes, I get reminded of this major difference. And the dates, the same thing in English. You pinpoint the date first, January 2nd, 2017. But in Korean, the big picture comes first. So 2017, and then January, and then the date, like that. And incidentally, it was interesting. My high school teacher, English teacher, said he was introducing Hemingway to us. And he was talking about The Old Man and the Sea. And he said, only in America and in an English-speaking country, the author would call his novella The Old Man and the Sea. In Korean, if a Korean had written that story, he would have probably called it The Sea and the Old Man. And I thought that was quite a keen observation of the cultural differences.